talking about the Tampa Bay real estate market. I'm Andrew Duncan, joined by Robert Johnson with the Duncan Duo team and Mike Corrigan from Cross Country Mortgage. Just wanted to recap what we talked about in our first segment, which was if you're thinking about buying a home and you're a married couple, we gave some tips about how to navigate through that as a married couple to help honor and protect your marriage, but also to help make the best decision for your family that you don't end up regretting later on. Unfortunately, every year we have multiple customers who buy a home and a few months later come back to us ready to sell it because they didn't go through some of these steps. So we just want to help you avoid that process. So selling a home when you're husband and wife, a little bit different than buying because it is a little bit more of a business decision and less of an emotional one. But it's also not, it's not as cumbersome in terms of you're not looking at as many houses, you're not going out on weekends, you're not going through like this needs analysis. It's really just determining what your goals and objectives are and then picking the right path to go there. But I've seen it happen a lot where, the husband may like a particular agent, the wife may like a particular agent, they can't decide, or the husband wants to go one path, the spouse wants to go another, and then guess what? 6 months later, they don't go that path, and then there's this resentment in the marriage that, well, you chose that agent, not me, and then the finger pointing and the blame and the chaos comes in. So kind of the same thing we were saying before. If you're selling a home as a husband and wife, you need to make the decision together. It can't be the husband picking the realtor. It can't be the wife picking the realtor. It needs to be both of you picking the realtor. And then if things work out, great. If they don't, you both did it together. There's that was your pick or my pick. It's not a scorecard. That isn't going to help your marriage, and certainly ain't going to help you with the real estate process because it just ain't. So I think that's step number one. But I think again, going back to assessing the needs, because what we've seen happen, a lot is the business dominant, person of the relationship makes the decision and picks the real estate agent. But then guess who's the one that's got to communicate with the real estate agent all the time? Right. The one that ain't busy, the one that's at home with the kids, the non-business dominant one who didn't get to pick it. And then guess what that's like when that person resents the fact that their husband or their wife picked someone that they didn't like. You know what happens. It's resentment. It's problems.
Yeah, and it's always hard as an agent to have one of the marriage be the in-between person. So like the decision maker maybe not be the one that's talking to you. Right. I think there's some things on the agent side that we can do to remedy that, but I think that it's important as a couple to make sure you're on the same page throughout the entire process, and that actually starts before the process even starts. So make sure that you're both on board with the reasons that you're selling the house. Make sure you're actually both on board with the decision, with the reasoning behind it, and then where you're going to be after the decision is done and made. So where are you going after you're selling? And make sure you're on the same page throughout the whole thing, because selling a house and moving is a very cumbersome process to a lot of people. It's very, it's supposed to be one of the most stressful things that you can do as far as picking up your whole life and moving it. So you want to make sure that you have the same goal in mind, because there's going to be many times in the process where you're going to want to make sure that you're both very focused on that goal.
And I think, today, they say communication is the key to all relationships, but when you're going through this with technology today, loop everybody in. Yeah. Have both the husband and wife copied in on the same email, do a group text, bring them in on a conference call if there's a phone call and say, hey, let me get my husband or let me get my wife on the phone. Let's do this all together so things don't get lost in the game of telephone tag.
And we run into that a lot, especially when you can tell either there's problems in the marriage, they have indicated they are filing or have filed for divorce or are separated, because what ends up happening is you communicate with one with the expectation they're going to communicate that message. They don't, and then the other party gets mad because they're on title too. So I think that's another important one. And it's not as if you need to tell your realtor, we're having fights, we're having marriage problems. That's not the realtor's place. But if divorce is imminent or you have already filed, first off, sometimes people look up records. Sometimes it can impact title if you're already far along in that process, but the home is still titled together. Communicate that so we know, because then we're going to double the communication to make sure, number one, we're covered, but also it protects both of you too. So there isn't some scenario where one or the other parties comes back and says, hey, why did you do this? I didn't authorize this. So I think that's a crucial one. If there is something like that going on, please communicate it. And I think another one, the process of selling, before you meet with the agent, in my opinion, the husband and wife should sit down and say, these are the things we're looking for.
Yes.
Like, have an idea of what you want in an agent before the meeting ever happens. Because when you don't do that, here's what ends up happening. They say, hey, I want an agent with this, this, and this. And I want an agent that'll do this, or I want an instant offer, or I want this, or I want that. And then someone comes in that is really nice and sweet, and one of the spouses likes the person, but they don't have any of those things. Right. And then there's a I feel bad process, that I feel bad that we shouldn't hire that person because maybe the person's a great salesperson, but they're not good at marketing homes, or maybe they guilt trip them into feeling bad. So make sure you meet ahead of time and are on the same page with what you want to accomplish, what you want from the agent, and what you want from that process. So we're going to be back. We're going to get off of the marriage roller coaster and talk about some other real estate things after a quick break here on the Duncan Duo Show.